Good evening and welcome to New York City Atheists Live on Tape, brought to you by New York City Atheists. I'm your host, Dennis Horvitz, the David Letterman of the Hopelessly Damned. Now tonight, we've got kind of a two-for-one. Our main guest is John A. ARETAKIS, who is an attorney representing 200 victims of clergy sexual abuse, and in addition to an extra 100 who are victims of non-clergy sexual abuse. And he is a supporter of SNAP, and he told me what SNAP means, and of course I completely forgot it on the way to the podium. But he will, so stand by. And dropping by to join John is Father Bob Hodson, who runs the organization Road to Recovery, and that is also devoted to victims of clergy sexual abuse. And hopefully we will get it up on the screen during the show. But just for your edification, Road to Recovery can be accessed by going to www.road-to-recovery.org. So without further ado, I just want to introduce John A. ARETAKIS.
In any event, I digress. Father Hodson is like an angel. He helps victims of clergy abuse who can't pay their electric bill, their phone bill, their heating bill in the winter, and he helps them because he himself was abused so many times when he was studying for the priesthood at a very young and tender age. Now,
who runs the organization Road to Recovery, and that is also devoted to victims of clergy sexual abuse. And hopefully we will get it up on the screen during the show. But just for your edification, Road to Recovery can be accessed by going to www.road-to-recovery.org. So without further ado, I just want to introduce John A. ARETAKIS.
In any event, I digress. Father Hodson is like an angel. He helps victims of clergy abuse who can't pay their electric bill, their phone bill, their heating bill in the winter, and he helps them because he himself was abused so many times when he was studying for the priesthood at a very young and tender age. Now, there's going to be a question and answer period, and believe me, I'm so fluent in many different dialects you can...
Yes,
Howard, what we're going to do is we're going to save all the questions to the end. I'm going to try to, they told me on a clock, speak for a little under a half an hour, and then we'll take under a half an hour of questions. And I want you to realize you can ask questions to Father Hodson and myself. From my own perspective, I was born a Greek Orthodox. My mother was as active in the church as a person could be. We were actually made fun of up in Albany because when we got 14 inches of snow, our family and the priest was at church religiously. I was an altar boy from 13, and it should have gone to about 15 or 16. I stayed till I was 18 because they had a shortage of altar boys. So traditionally, I can say the Mass, the Greek Church, and the Catholic Church were once the same church until the Great Schism in around 1100. But I just want to give you that as some sort of a background of where I come from, religiously speaking. Like I said, I have found a great affinity towards the atheists and the atheist movement because I, too, have run into a problem with organized religion. And it's a huge problem. And it's not just limited to the Catholic Church, but I've picked my battles with the Catholic Church, and I plan on staying there for the time being. I've actually... And I don't mean to wax kind of on the incredible, but I've actually had clients of mine commit suicide while I was their lawyer. I actually had someone leave me a phone message telling me they were going to commit suicide. I didn't pick up the phone call until afterwards, and the next day the person was gone. So there's a tremendous psychological disorder with not only being abused, but by then hiding and keeping that secret in for decades. And you can't tell your parents, you can't tell your siblings. You're threatened with all kinds of religious problems from the priest who abused you, because all of these pedophiles, all of these monsters, what they need as much as access to children is they need silence. And I don't know if any of you read the press release. I mean, I don't want to go over anything that Jane wrote in that wonderful piece, but These monsters that abuse children, they're always worldly and famously beloved by everyone. Because think about it. If you want to have sex with a child, you know what you do? You start the food pantry. You feed AIDS patients. You go to people's funerals. You go to things that no one would go to, because then you become beloved. And the word ordination means, technically from the Latin, another Christ on earth. You are literally the connection of Christ on earth to us mere mortals. Very, very scary, very serious business, this Catholic Church stuff. And there are a number of politicians who are so tied in with the church, both for political reasons and because of the brainwashing reasons, that it's just almost impossible to fight City Hall, so to speak. I will also tell you this about the Vatican. And the Catholic Church is really almost the purest form of a hierarchical organization. I don't know if you know this, but when Galileo discovered that the world was round, it took the Catholic Church and the Vatican 400 years to recognize that as correct. Church is always very slow to come to any conclusions or any criticism of itself. In the old days, they used to say, on like birth control or abortion or homosexuality, they used to say, the Vatican has spoken. The issue is now closed. And hierarchical, I mean, it runs itself almost like the mafia. All the local churches give back to the diocese. The diocese has to pay tribute back to the national church, and the national church has to pay tribute back to the Vatican. That's where a lot of the money is going, tax exempt. And actually, if you're worried about your tax dollars, or you might ask, how can we do anything to combat, this church power? I'll just tell you one thing. Even Governor Patterson, this new governor we have, who I greatly admire, even though he's Catholic, he approved $120,000 for this Gothic church's renovation up in Albany. The church in Albany has $500 million in cash and real estate reserves alone, and our taxpayers' money are being given to this $12 million renovation, and the state of New York is kicking in $120,000 this year, because last year they only kicked in $100,000 to help this. I mean, this is your tax dollars. There's no separation of church and state. It's a one-way street. Politicians, Attorney General, FBI, they won't investigate the church because of all this financial corruption and this abuse, this systematic abuse of children, because of that fear of alienating Catholic voters and the separation of church and state. But the church is out there every day. Give us our money. Give us our HMOs. Give us our health care. Subsidize this. Subsidize that. It's really a one-way street, and you have to fight it with your pocketbooks. Some of you may also ask, what can I do as a person who's interested and active in the atheist organization to help? I don't really know. I think that the only thing that people can do to support us is to somehow make your voice known. Call up a TV station, call up the newspaper, encourage other people to put pressure on the media to take interest in this. I have found that since so many of my cases are beyond the statute of limitations, the only godsend I've had, so to speak, excuse me if it's a Freudian slip, is the media. The media has been fascinated with this because the media loves scandal, they love sex, they love something sexy like a priest having sex with a boy, and look, I've had to take advantage of that. And that's why I have to tell people this, including my wife, who's very conservative and very traditional, and right now she's at church with one of my children. My first 17 years as a lawyer, I appeared in a newspaper article once. And now if you hit Google and you get me, you get 10,000 hits. Now that doesn't mean I've done 10,000 stories, but I've done a lot of stories on clergy abuse because it's the only saving grace that I have. Let me tell you one other thing about the Catholic Church. It is the #1 religious denomination in this country. It's approximately 24% of this country. However, in New York, it's approximately 39%. And in Albany, it's even much higher. I don't know if it's over 50 or under 50, but it's much, much higher. And these politicians, they kowtow to the church, and they will not go against the church. And I've had so many occasions where these priests come in on people's deathbeds, and they know they have some falling outs with children or nieces and nephews, and they get people to overrule their will and to give a lot of money back to the Catholic Church. And none of these judges want to do anything about it. Everyone is afraid of the Catholic Church. And I can't even believe in this day and age where everyone now would say, Can my son go away for the weekend, who's only 10, with a Catholic priest camping? No way. But they're still going to church, they're still giving to the church, they're still supporting the church, and they're still tied in with the church. If there was a major corporate CEO who, like this Catholic Church, in the past 5 years, had 4,000 priests removed for pedophilia, these CEOs would be gone. But the church threw us one bone 4 years ago when they got rid of cardinal law. Getting me to my opinion about these pedophiles. I actually feel sorry for pedophiles because, like alcoholism and other diseases, it's a sickness. It's not controllable. To be sexually attracted to a small child is a form of illness which is way beyond my pay grade. I am angry at these bishops and cardinals who have allowed this, who move these people, shuffle them from store to store, so to speak, and hide them. Father Hotzen, when he used to protest about pedophiles abusing children, you know what they used to do to him? They used to take him out of the rectory and move him to a church and make him bunk with a pedophile. That's how they kind of penalize him. And a lot of these child abusers, because they had the goods on other people who would abuse children, advanced to very high positions. And several of these bishops have been removed over the past few years or gently retired because of their history of pedophilia. And the church is very good at hiding behind church and state. I'll give you this one example. It's a Latin phrase called sub secreto. It means very top secret. If there is any type of sexual abuse allegation against a bishop, cardinal, or an archbishop, it immediately does not stay in any form in the United States. It goes to the Vatican, where it's put in the basement in their files. Way beyond my subpoena power, way beyond the FBI subpoena power. We can't touch it. And it's this hiding behind the First Amendment, which in its concept has allowed atheists and all other types of groups to procreate. You know, the First Amendment sounds like a good thing, but the church uses it both as a shield to protect themselves and as a sword to advance in their own interest, get money, and accumulate large blocks of people, who politicians think are blocks of voters. Anyway, I hope I haven't digressed too much. Because of the lighting, I can't even read my notes, but I would like to touch on a couple of things. If you ever see an obituary of a priest in their 40s and 50s, I am going to tell you that there is a huge and significant percentage of priests in this country, in this city, that are HIV positive. And I don't say that to laugh and to make fun of them or to take any kind of cheer in that, but there is such a high degree of homosexuality amongst the priesthood in this country that has caused this other problem. And you see, this is where I come from, this dialectic of being for it and against it. I am so in favor of homosexuality and homosexual rights and the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do in the sanctity and privacy of your own bedroom and home. But there's such dysfunction in the Catholic Church from the top down that it has caused harm to so many children and actually continues to cause harm. Now, some of you today might say, oh, look at this guy. What's with the red shirt and the red tie? Well, you know, actually my wife criticizes me when I wear this, but I wear this shirt and this tie often when I speak because I like to talk symbolically. Someone spoke waxed poetically or philosophically earlier, and I wear this because to me this represents the blood of children, of thousands and thousands of children that are on the hands of the Catholic Church. So I don't wear red to be flamboyant or to draw attention to myself. This represents my own way of saying to the Church, it's still going on. There are still a massive amount of pedophiles in ministry. One other thing that you can do is legislatively write your assemblyman, write your senator, try to support Margaret Markey's bill. It's called Windows legislation. Father Bob can give you more information about that. And I will tell you one last other story for some of you who are New York City buffs. The closest bishop, cardinal, archbishop in this country ever to be this close to being made pope on the short list was Cardinal Francis Spellman. You heard that name? He was the predecessor Archbishop of New York City in the 30s, 40s, and partially into the 50s. Spellman. Cardinal Spellman was over here on the west side with Roy Cohn in a big pink Cadillac trolling after midnight for teenage male hookers that used to hang out at Christopher Street and still do. Cardinal Spellman liked young boys. And That's not a joke. I mean, it sounds funny and it sounds like it's just an opinion, but it really has been written about in many different books, and people knew about it, and it was just a kind of look the other way thing that went on. You know, priests had their little thing. And now a lot of you might say, does this come from celibacy? Is this all about celibacy, and why aren't women allowed to be priests? That's all a bunch of hogwash. Celibacy is their own problem. I'd say that 90% of the priests in this country have no idea and concept what celibacy is. Thank goodness 30 or 40% are just having sex with women, and 30% are having sex with other men, and they're all consensual adults. God bless them. Again, I don't mean that as a Freudian slip or an insult, but they've given me their expressions, and now I have to live with them. But the ones that have sex with children, they're the ones that I'm focused on. They're my problem. They're the sick people that have no control. And then the Catholic Church has also come up with this definition of a phebophile, and in their definition that means a post-pubescent kid, or a kid 13 to 17, and if a priest has sex with those children, those priests can be cured. A true pedophile, the Church says, has sex with kids prepubescent, 5 or 6 to 12. No pubic hair, not reached puberty yet. They can't be cured. We all agree on that. I don't even care about the distinctions. It's all a bunch of sickness to me. And there's a lot of children out there that are very, very damaged. And these people, they grow up to bomb the World Trade Center and bomb the Murrah building in Oklahoma and kill innocent people. I mean, if you've been abused as a child, you grow up with a deep, dark secret. And you also grow up very mad at your parents. Because I don't know if you can remember back when you were a child, but you always have this feeling your parents know everything. And even though it's your own dark, dirty little secret that you're being abused by a trusted family priest who happens to come over for dinner once a month, you assume your parents know, even though now we know they didn't. And you grow up distrustful, dysfunctional, and overcoming severe disabilities throughout your adult life. I always like to give the example that a wound of a child being sexually abused is like a crack in the earth's surface. It starts down very, very small, and as you get older, it just becomes a big, huge, astronomical crevice, causing all kinds of problems, and you need to get therapy, and you need to get help for it. And that's why Father Bob and I work with 100 or so victims in common. He helps them financially, and I help them legally. And again, I do not want to sound like I am a slight against homosexuality. It's not. It's not. And as far as atheism goes, you know, I've had my own personal opinions that I will keep personal and private, because the Church has attacked me very seriously with anything they can to get their hands on to discredit me and to try to yank my law license or have my cases thrown out of court. They fight very, very dirty. So I'd like to keep my personal feelings on that. My observations about atheism and the atheist movement, however, is I think you need to be more maybe user-friendly. You need to bring in more people. You have to increase the numbers in your group. You have to make it more of a social organization, and intellectually it will spawn itself. And I very much thank you and appreciate you inviting me here to speak to you. I hope I haven't digressed too much. I also want to tell all of you that if any of you have questions, I will also, Father Hotzen will also clearly take some questions.
I would like to, before we start the questions,
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce Father Hotzen, if you would just come up. Yeah, this is Father Bill Hotzen, who is running Road to Recovery, and we're going to have on our screen, on a call, on a. Okay. Sure. Stand behind me. I need these guys standing behind me. Or, hopefully, if you're, is it not on the thing? Sorry, we'll just. Yeah. Anybody got any cards? Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, that's dulcet tones just wafting across the room. If anyone would like more information about either SNAP or Road to Recovery or if anyone would like more information about either SNAP or Road to Recovery or John's practice, all this information will be made available and on the website. But I just did want to get Father Bob here, and so that if you have any questions, by all means, ask them, both of them. So, Yeah, why don't we just speak to us for a few minutes, and if you just stand right there, you'll be all right.
Good afternoon. As John has and everyone else has said, I am a Roman Catholic priest. In 2005, I filed a lawsuit against my bishop, Cardinal Egan, the Bishop of Albany, the people who abused me, which was the Irish Christian Brothers. And a week later, I was placed on administrative leave by my bishop because I would have been scandalous to the people, because I filed a lawsuit against my bishop. My lawsuit essentially has to do with the fact that I was sexually abused from the day I entered the religious life, at the age of 18. It actually began in high school at the age of 17. And I have a cousin, a first cousin, who attended the same high school as I, and on October 10th, 1978, he put a bullet in his head. He had been sexually abused in the same high school by a religious there. So from the time I was 18 until the time I was 30, I was sexually abused by about 5 different men. And you might say, well, how the heck could you have stayed that long? Well, I thought I had a vocation. I still think I have a vocation. But it's becoming very clear that my sense of vocation is not the same as the institutional church's sense of vocation. So thanks for inviting me today, and be happy to answer any questions. John?
You know, listen, as a historical fact, I was born in 1960, so by then Cardinal Spellman was off the charts. But it's been written about in books, written primarily about with Roy Cohn and what he used to like to do on the lower.
To make personal contact with you and find out some of the research.
I mean, if you, Father Hotzen, it's.
Father Hudson, do you have any recollection or about first-hand, second-hand, third-hand stories about Spellman?
Well, Spellman supposedly used to, as John said, get in the limo and do this cruising, but he also, from what I've been told, liked the Broadway theaters. See, at the Broadway theaters, the stage doors were manned by Irish Catholic men,
Yeah.
principally.
Typical cars, yes.
Okay. I've been told that Spellman used to, after the shows, would go in, 10, 15, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then pick up the little kids who were in the shows or the teenage boys that were in the shows. And
To round out some of the personal knowledge that I have, I represent about a dozen priests like Father Hotzen who were themselves abused in seminary, went on to a great degree. I also represented the family of a bishop who died last year named Bishop Broderick. Bishop Broderick was the rector of St. Patrick's Cathedral for many, many years, and he was also Cardinal Spellman's first assistant when he was in his 20s. Bishop Broderick, his family has told me, and they've given me a plethora of pictures, that Cardinal Spellman was widely known to be a gay man and also have a penchant for children. I mean, it's not first-hand direct information, but when you hear it from a real insider who worked directly under Cardinal Spellman, and I have letters and things and photographs and things in Bishop Broderick's own handwriting that indicate his boss was kind of eccentric in the sex department. Those matters were kept private. I mean, much like John F. Kennedy. You walk in here and see this place named for the Kennedys. I mean, John Kennedy in the 60s, the stories about other women and, Miss Campbell and Marilyn Monroe and all that, it's legendary. I mean, does anyone have photographs and videotape of it? No, but back then the media was not as scrutinizing of private behavior. Hotzen might be a little bit better to answer that, but let me just give you my opinion of where your statement comes from. I'm a priest, and say we have 30 people in this room, and I know that maybe 25 of you come from really nice, stable, affluent households, but then I know 5 of you here. Your father is beating your mom and dad are both alcoholics, your parents were both killed in a car accident, and you're being raised by some absentee aunt, okay? You're the vulnerable ones. I'm keying in on you. You're the ones with weakness, and I can see that. And your support system is almost gone because your parents aren't there. But don't get me entirely incorrect. My information is that even one of the Kennedy children was abused sexually 30 or 40 years ago, and they just banned that priest to Siberia, and the Kennedy family kept it quiet. and again, working in a restaurant called Kennedy's, it's unbelievable to me that a priest would have the craziness to abuse a child from the Kennedy family. I don't know how when you find out you don't kill someone who's harmed your child. So, next question. Father Hodson may
Call the police immediately. Call the police. Do not go to the church. Do not, when you suspect any of this, do not tell the church. Deal only with authorities. Now, we haven't had 100% accuracy with the authorities, but the authorities have tended to be more conscientious about resolving these things. And the victims will be treated much better by the civil authorities and the social authorities, social work authorities, than they will by the church.
What about the newspapers?
50th high school reunion. And I was raised a Catholic through college and high school. Very, very strict Irish Roman Catholic crucible was I heated in, if you will. And among my colleagues at that reunion and among all the people I know, I have never once heard any one person talk about abuse or any homosexual indications from any priest that we interacted with. So to me, a lot of this is like hearing the X-Files for the first time. And the idea that a young person is abused and doesn't go to a parent and a parent doesn't respond immediately, I find close to absurd. So I must say that this is one response you're getting in disbelief and I distrust, frankly, on my part.
that's
I'll bet if you gave me the name of your school or the religious order that runs your school, I bet you I can name 5, 10, 15 priests who are pedophiles in that order.
they're very good at keeping it